I think are we all on board now? Is the mayor with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Let's call the meeting to order. And Councilman Griffin, I'm gonna get you to bring the invocation.
Absolutely. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for just a wonderful holiday season. We thank you for a wonderful Thanksgiving, hopefully spent with family. And as we get towards Christmas and the end of the year, Lord, we ask that you help us on city council and everyone in the city to not only have a great holiday season, but also to think about our families and think about all of the people that we serve on a daily basis and help us serve them in the way that you would, Lord. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you,
Amen.
Councilman Griffin. According to the agenda, all the minutes being deferred brings us down to acceptance and dedication of rights of way. Mr. O'Brien.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. This is just for the city to notify SCDOT that we're going to accept 140 feet of granite curb in conjunction with the project that's going on at 741 Meeting Street.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee? We have a motion.
So moved.
Properly
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Easement, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Temporary encroachments, Mr. O'Brien?
No, sir, we just have our standard. We have a few right angle signs, some fences and some irrigation, and we've had those inspected in the field and we've approved them and recommend them to you as information, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by committee members? Down to item H, stormwater management update. Item 1, the medical district tunnel. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is a approval to submit a grant application for a HUD CDBG MIT. That's the mitigation program within the HUD CDBG family of grants. So this is a flood mitigation project. This is the Earhart Shaft, the medical district tunnel extension that we frequently talk about.
Right.
So this would drain approximately 27 acres potentially of the medical district, including some of the emergency room hospital access points on Earhart Street and Jonathan Lucas. Extending out to the Spring Fishburne project, the grant application would be for $8,250,000 of those grant funds, which would require a city match of $2,750,000 from the drainage fund, providing a total funding through that application and match of $11 million.
Okay. Should I have included item 1 and 2 on that, Mr. Fountain?
You certainly could. Item 2 is a separate grant application for a different federal agency. It's for the same project though, so it's certainly up to you, Mr. Chairman, on which way
we have the motion. Since we have the motion for on this one, let's stay within that motion. Let me ask this: hadn't we applied for monies through, I thought, the state and the governor's office or whatever on this week?
We
ever
had.
hear back?
Yes, yeah. So and I certainly the mayor can add probably more detail than I can, but I believe that the governor had put it in with his draft budget as a request in the current fiscal year, and then sort of as they went through the budget process at the state, which obviously was a challenging budget year for them as well. It didn't make it into the final budget as a line item for the medical district. So this is basically another round of funding that the state disaster recovery office actually oversees basically the award of these HUD grants. So it's basically another application through the state for these federal funds to be considered.
I agree. Any question, Mr. Mayor?
I would like to add to that, Mr. Chairman, and just advise that as Mr. Fountain pointed out, the governor did put it in his budget request. Given what happened with COVID, basically the state just stuck by what they spent in 2019 and didn't add new things for 2020. So we didn't get added to the state budget. When the governor was here about 6 weeks ago for an announcement over at Medical University, he mentioned this again. And so if it doesn't get funded through this mechanism, he plans to add it again for his budget request for next year's state budget. But frankly, we're hopeful that we'll go ahead and get the approval sooner rather than later because of the timing in tying into the tunnel system with Spring Fishburne.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Councilman Griffith and then Councilman Shade.
And if I believe I read this a couple weeks ago, luckily our state is still working with a little bit of a surplus. So maybe some of those leftover monies, maybe we can get this project through that. I mean, I'm sure that their budget, basically the way 19 worked just because of how COVID is, but hopefully things get a lot better and they've got some money left over and, hopefully we can, Mr. Mayor, I know you can help make sure that this is a priority for the governor and that it doesn't slip through the cracks.
I talk to him about it every time I see him, I assure you.
Councilman Shade?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering if that new bill that got shepherded through the General Assembly with hospitality, can that money now be used from hospitality and accommodations be used towards this, or part of this grant? Does anybody know that? Will that fall into that category, Mr. Mayor?
Hospitality money could, as long as you interpret the whole peninsula to be, or this part of the peninsula to be a tourism related area, which my view of it is the whole city of Charleston is a tourism area. So it could be, it could.
This is a project that gives a lot of bang for
Oh, yeah,
a
it
few
does.
bucks. Frankly, it really does. Any more questions on behalf of committee members? Do we have a motion?
I think, if not, I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay. Any more questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? H2, Mr. Fountain?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the same project, the Earhart Shaft Medical District Tunnel Extension, but a different federal grant application. This is for a FEMA BRIC grant, which is a new grant for this year, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant. It's replacing the old PDM grants that they had trouble finding anyone to actually be able to award project work to because of some of the restrictions within the program. So this is a much more open-ended program. It's typically restricted to states that have disaster declarations in them. This year is a little bit unusual in that the entire country has disaster declarations due to coronavirus. So it's expected to be an incredibly competitive grant. It's been very heavily advertised, very heavily pushed by the federal agencies. They really would like this to be a success. We did tailor this application to fit what we think is a likely potential funding level for a project in South Carolina. There's $500 million available in the entire grant program for all 50 states. For all projects. So we're trying to find a project size that we think works well. Again, we think we have a wonderful story to tell with this project, with the benefits to the medical district, the VA hospital, the nonprofit with Roper Hospital there, and kind of the benefits to the major infrastructure corridor here within the peninsula. And that's really what the target of the grant is. So I think we have a strong application, but it's a brand new application program. So no one has quite a perfect understanding of what will be seen for value under their scoring system. But we are applying for $2,250,000 of grant funding with a city match of another $750,000 from the drainage fund for a total funding of $3 million with this application.
Okay.
I'll move for approval.
Properly moved and
Second.
seconded out there. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 3, Spring Fishburne Phase 5, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the next professional service amendment to the Davidson-Floyd contract for moving to Phase 5 of the Spring Fishburne project. Now that we have the South Carolina Transportation Infrastructure Bank award for that project. So this is for $337,842 of professional service fees, basically towards pump procurement and delivery services. Includes an update of the cost estimate for the overall pump station superstructure from the original work that was done about 10 years ago. And then this is funded through the actual King Street Gateway TIF at this point. So this work is pretty much updating the original design work for the new emission standards for generator units, basically running that back through the chain of mechanical and electrical work associated with those generators, finalizing the specification for the pumps, then basically ordering the pumps. The reason you order the pumps ahead of time like this is that some of the manufacturers will have like an 18-month lead time on basically manufacturing, producing those pumps and then shipping them. So it's a way to provide owner supplied equipment to a contractor to keep the project moving kind of seamlessly on a single time frame, rather than hiring a contractor and then basically having the contractor wait for 18 months to have pumps delivered to put into the project work.
Okay, any questions on Spring Fishburne?
So moved.
Properly moved and get a
Second.
second. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Church Creek,
So moved.
Imagine that. Second.
yeah, well, pretty big surprise. Pretty
I'll
big
second the
surprise.
motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Got a lot of seconds on that one. Mr. Fountain, explain to us what this $500,000 contract will do.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is sort of the long discussed and awaited professional service work coming out of sort of the Dutch dialogue approach to the Church Creek Basin, of saying that let's find available storage capacity and give somewhere for the water to go. It's a relatively affordable approach to significantly reducing the flooding levels in the basin. We had Wes and Sampson perform some modeling previously for us, shown there was some real benefit in what we kind of call this mid-basin storage area, basically storing water north of the railroad track, and shown some possible options. We've had discussions between with the mayor and with Councilman Griffin, with some of the larger property owners in the area, Councilman Shealy as well. It's not here today, but discussing of where we could basically obtain property to store that. And then we worked with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to achieve roughly $1.5 million of federal grant money to bring into this project. This work is the professional service contract work with Biohabitats, which will be the lead firm. They are actually working with Wes and Sampson as well as one of the partner firms to basically lay out the overall improvement plan for where those improvements would sit, to do preliminary design work on like the townhomes and some of the other purchased properties that we have bought out, as well as looking at some of these larger regional storage options on, again, these properties we've discussed, and go through the kind of the initial assessment and initial permitting work. This is preliminary engineering, so there will be one more round of professional service work for final design on the second grant award, which is the implementation side. This will be on the design side, but it does take us a huge step forward into improvements in flooding within this obviously very heavily challenged basin.
Okay. Any input, Councilman Griffin?
Yes, this is my Christmas morning. I haven't slept in a week since Matt said that this was coming to us at this meeting. So thank God tonight I'm finally going to sleep for the first time in a week. Thank y'all for unanimously approving this.
Okay. All right. Sounds like we're all in on this one.
Look well rested.
Yeah, well, you're right. I'm gonna call for the question.
Well,
All
I'm
in
young,
favor-
Mr. Mayor. I always look well rested.
I know, man. You got a fresh haircut for this one and all.
That's right.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Mr. Fountain, and everybody involved with that one. That was a long time coming. Stormwater updates, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few quick updates on the projects. I know we've had a long day and probably have a long session potentially tomorrow, but wanted to give you some updates on where some of the larger projects stand and a few of the small projects that we have underway. Just very briefly, the phase 4 of the Spring Fishburne project, we're still continuing on excavation work within the wet well and outfall, but if you drive through that area, you can see those pits are nearing completion. We have a lot of our structural support work. All of it has been fabricated. The vast majority of it's been installed. We're nearing the bottom grade for excavation, and we'll start to be working on something other than digging and hauling dirt soon, which I think will make everyone on the project team happy. Spring Fishburne phase 5, we obviously just passed the contract to start procurement design work for the pump station, so that that project is now moving and will flow seamlessly from phase 4 into phase 5 is the plan. Low battery phase 1, all of the wall, walkway, kind of the heavy concrete structural work of the project is now complete. We're still doing some of the like bluestone surfacing and the railing installations on the wall and the stairways. But the wall itself, the walkway, all that is completed at this point. Where we are working right now, but primarily on granite curb and sidewalk, the street level sidewalk installation, and prepping the street for the new installation of new pavement. So we can basically go back and then pave the other side of the road, and still have that project on schedule to be completed in January of 2021 for phase 1. And that brings us to Low Battery phase 2, which is currently being bid by the previously pre-qualified contractors, with the bids expected to be received by us and brought to council in early January, so that we can bring that work also basically to have phase 2 flow seamlessly from phase 1 into phase 2 on that project as well. King UG, the drainage improvements there, that the first phase, the surface level improvements, is currently in bid as well. That's out for public bid. The second phase, which will be the pump station improvements, that is currently in design and permitting work. That is flowing along well as well. We'd expect to be in construction on that very early in 2021 as well for the surface improvements. The Forest Acres project, as we briefly touched on last meeting, the utility relocation is now in progress by AT&T. That should continue for approximately 10 more months, with then drainage improvements beginning as soon as that wraps up. We'll again flow straight from the utility relocation into the stormwater system installation.
Mr. Fountain, the cost of the drainage improvements for that phase is approximately what?
I have to pull up the exact numbers, Mr. Chairman, but it's somewhere on the order of $8 million. I'd have to pull the exact numbers though.
Okay, all right, thank you. You can email that later on.
Yeah, absolutely, I can do that. The Market Street project, we have received our final DOT approvals. So at this point, Dominion is working on their undergrounding plan, and that will be the basically the setting for our critical path of how that project continues forward. For Cooper Jackson, the east side drainage improvement evaluation, we had done our original survey work. We've now completed rehabilitating about 10,000 feet of drainage pipe in that neighborhood. Significant amount of sediment removal and reopening of drainage systems, which has provided some, I think, pretty good short-term improvements. But now we're beginning the more complex field level survey work. Actually started this morning on that recently cleaned section of system, which they'll use to create their models for potential improvement scenarios. The Barbary Woods drainage diversion project, we've got into preliminary design work now. We've done quite a bit of property research, wetland survey, and are laying out their design on that project approach. The kind of associated project with that, the Johns Island drainage system evaluation project, we've gotten started on that now, and we're laying out the kind of the continuation of the Dutch Dialogues look of different zones and elevations and options for rehabilitation work that's funded by NIFWF, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, on that one. The Windermere drainage improvement evaluation survey is now in progress on that project, and basically we're doing that similar thing where the east side is doing, where surveyors will be looking at the system, laying out different options, and then building a computer model for evaluating different improvement options. The DuPont Wapu improvement projects, that was approved to start design. So we are now in initial coordination work and design with some of the property owners out there, as well as this one we have the survey work for. So now it's actually getting into more of the actual design side. The Concord Street pump station, that's the kind of the Calhoun East and Market Street pump station. We're doing our upfit design or conceptual design work on our upfit for that, for replacing and rehabilitating that system. The Church Creek flood storage projects, we just passed that scope tonight, and we'll be able to begin our preliminary engineering work. And we'll have a follow-on task from the Water Institute of the Gulf, which is one of the Dutch Dialogue teams, coming for public outreach and discussion with the community, and coordination with the Church Creek Stormwater Authority group that's also been formed recently. And then the Limehouse Brick Arch Rehabilitation Pilot Project, those contracts have now been approved. So we'll be getting ready to start on the rehabilitation of that first pilot archway in early 2021 with field construction. The Central Park drainage improvements, we're negotiating scope with our design consultant to kind of lay out exactly what the first steps will be for the improvement work, design work in that area. And the county is preparing an RFQ for their managed portion of the city's CTC funding work within that basin as well for the basically culvert replacements on Central Park to try to minimize some of the road flooding on the western half of that basin. Sherwood, the Sherwood drainage improvements. I think we did complete that removal of that last tree and regrade that ditch. So now the drainage should be fully working, and we'll still take the next couple months to kind of stabilize it and make sure it doesn't have any issues as it kind of gets used and the water starts flowing through it. But we've already seen some improvements, I think, in some of the recent rainstorms that's looked a lot better out there than it has in the past. So hopefully removing that tree after that will make it even more effective. And then
that tree, that was a huge tree, man. So thank you very much on that.
It was, and I think that one was helpful in that it was both blocking drainage and looming like it was going to fall on the affordable housing complex next door. So it was a good item to get removed, and I think we had good coordination from everyone on that one. So I appreciate all.
Thanks for your help. Thanks for your help, Mr. Fema.
Yeah, and then two other small projects got going in the last month, which were the Dowden area evaluation and the West Pawnee area evaluation that we've got field work starting on the survey work for both of those with the engineering firm, basically again doing field assessments to build their computer model to look at some improvement options for those two locations. That's what I had for today's update, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Councilman Shaheen.
Yeah, Mr. Fallon, thank you for that update, particularly my pet projects. Do you know if the residents were able to chat with any of the crews out there doing that survey work? I know that they were concerned about that.
Yeah, so what we normally do is we give them some kind of handout information things if the residents have short-term questions. And then what we'll try to do is after we've collected a little bit of data, we'll have a period where the residents can meet with the engineers at the consulting firm to kind of give their side of what they've seen. And the engineers then have enough sort of basic field data to understand what the residents are telling them. And it can be a productive conversation. We had really good success with Central Park with doing that same approach. With getting a little bit of field data first, then doing those follow-up conversations, and then going to build those stormwater models. So that's still an upcoming section for the more detailed conversation work. But we do have the surveyors with some kind of informational pamphlets and things if people have questions similar to what is happening right now in Windermere.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for all your help on that as well.
Absolutely.
Any more questions by committee members? All right. I guess I usually do it by acclamation, but I'm gonna ask for a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Mr. Mayor and everybody, I want you to realize that all this storm work, underground work and above work was done in less time than Councilman Shaheen could get one stadium approved over on Daniel Island.
You know, you couldn't let that pass, could you? You had to put that in there.
Somebody was giving him all that money.
I know.
Give him the city.
Y'all take care now. Y'all stay safe. Y'all stay safe, and I know we're gonna be talking about this budget. So by acclamation, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
y'all.
Thank y'all.